I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We can have roll call, please.
Chair Guerrero,
Here.
Vice Chair Armstead, here. Commissioner Lopez, Commissioner Sanchez,
Here.
and then Commissioner Flores,
Here.
Commissioner Lewis, here. Commissioner Morales,
Here.
and then Commissioner Cool said he was going to be out.
Okay, thank you. Jessica, if you can administer the oath.
Is there anybody that would like to public comment today, speak on any items? Okay, if you could just stand and raise your right hand. You can stand, please. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please, I could do. Okay. And then if you could, when you have a check-in, if you could fill out a little slip for the item you want to speak on. It's right over here.
Thank you. Is there anyone here wishing to speak on an item that is not on the agenda? There be none? Okay. So consent items?
If I may,
Yes.
Madam Chair, if I may request the planning commissioners to consider the moving of items number 6 and 7 to the front of the agenda. Both items are being requested for continuance to the next meeting of June the 14th, June 14th. If there is anyone in the audience, we would need to open the public hearing, if anyone has any testimony, and then we would close the public hearing. There will be no discussion this evening. We'll be continued directly. If you'd be so kind, if we could move those to the beginning of the agenda, we would need a motion and a second to move those to the beginning, and an affirmative vote if you are inclined to do so. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to move items number 6 and 7 up the agenda.
Second.
Mine's a different one. I have a couple of questions under the item number 2, Development Code Amendment 22.
Well, actually, we're still going to,
we're still going to discuss
the motion is to just move 6 and 7 up to the beginning.
Okay.
And then Chair Guerrero, how do you vote? And then Vice Chair Armstead, Commissioner Lopez, Commissioner Sanchez,
Yes.
Commissioner Flores, and then Commissioner Lewis,
Yes.
and Commissioner Morales.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll move the items up.
Oh, sorry, my apologies. We'll go ahead and open public hearing for items 6 and 7, or 6 only at this time. Is
Yes,
there
sir.
anyone wishing to speak?
So if I may provide that introduction. Item number 6 is Development Code Amendment, Zoning Map Amendment 20-05, and Development Permit Type 2003. It's for the property located at 791 South Waterman Avenue. The request is to allow the change of the zoning district classification from office industrial park to industrial light of 2 parcels containing a total of approximately 3.84 acres, and to allow the development and establishment of an industrial warehouse containing approximately 89,000 square feet. Property is comprised of 3 parcels. The total acreage is about 4 acres. Our request is to continue this item to our next meeting of June the 14th so that we can complete our analysis on the project on some information that has come in. With that, if we be so kind to open the public hearing. Thank you.
Okay. We'll go ahead and open the public hearing on item number 6. Anyone wishing to speak on this item? There be none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing for item number 6, and we'll continue with item number 7. Sir.
Mind entertaining a motion to continue the item to the June 14th meeting, and we'll need a second on that as well, and a roll call, please.
Okay. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to postpone item number 6 to the June 14th meeting, 2022.
I'll second.
Call for the vote?
Okay, Chair Guerrero, how do you vote?
Yes.
Vice Chair Armstead? Yes. Commissioner Lopez? Yes. Commissioner Sanchez?
Yes.
Commissioner Flores?
Yes.
And then Commissioner Lewis?
Yes.
And then Commissioner Morales?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Thank
Item
you.
number 7. Sir.
Item number 7 is Development Code Amendment, Zoning Map Amendment 2103, and Development Permit Type D 2115. Is for the property located at 5770 North Industrial Parkway, The request is to change the existing zoning designation of the parcel containing approximately 3.94 acres from commercial general to industrial heavy, and to allow the development and establishment of a truck terminal facility containing approximately 52,000 square feet on an overall project site that contains approximately 11 acres. Our request is to continue this item to the June 14th meeting, and if you're inclined, please open the public hearing for any testimony, and then close the public hearing and continue, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and open the public hearing for item number 7. Anyone wishing to speak on this item?
Oliver, was this the item we got a written public comment? Yes, we did. You want to just briefly mention that?
Yes, if I may, we did receive a public comment on this item. It's the adjoining property owner that wanted to have an opportunity to speak to the applicant. Seemed to be a question as to where the boundaries of the property and how it would be adjacent to his site, and particularly the access as it related to what the applicant is proposing for access on this location. And that correspondence was submitted by Todd Lesko, Lesko. And so we would address that comment as part of our presentation at the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and close the public hearing for item number 7. We can have the motion.
We need a motion on this
Yes.
as well.
If we can have the motion to continue this item?
I'll make a motion to continue this item to the meeting on June 14th.
I'll second.
Okay, call for the vote.
Chair Guerrero,
Yes.
Vice Chair Armstead, Commissioner Lopez, Commissioner Sanchez,
Yes.
Commissioner Flores,
Yes.
Commissioner Lewis, and Commissioner Morales.
Yes.
Okay.
Consent calendar, please.
Okay, thank you. So consent items are considered routine in nature and may be enacted in one motion. All public and non-public hearings will be opened at one time. Any item may be discussed separately upon request of a member of the Planning Commission or member of the public. Does staff have any updates for the consent calendar?
Yes, I do, Commissioners. We have 2 items on the agenda, consent calendar. The first item is the approval of the minutes for the last meeting on April the 12th. The second item is regarding Development Code Amendment 2203 regarding the ADUs, accessory dwelling units. If you recall that item after the public hearing and discussion, the Commission voted to keep the standards as is, not increasing the size from 1,000 to 1,200 square feet. The item has already been taken action on. What we've done is we've returned with the resolution of recommending denial to the City Council. Purpose of bringing this item back is so that we could read into the record the findings that you made. So again, there's the reason, if you will, for your recommendations to the City Council. And if you would allow me, I would like to introduce those 2 facts of findings. And if you agree, then with your motion or on the consent calendar item, it would be accepted. It would move forward. If there's anything that you would like to add to that, we can do that as well. So there's an opportunity for some edits if you are inclined. So if you bear with me for a moment, let me get my reading voice in. The resolution referring to is resolution number 2022-019, and it reads: the resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of San Bernardino, California, forwarding a recommendation to the Mayor and City Council recommending denial of Development Code Amendment 22-03, amending Section 19.04.030 2P6AI regarding specific ADU requirements of the City of San Bernardino Municipal Code Title 19 to increase the maximum size of a detached or attached accessory dwelling unit from 1,000 square feet to 12,000 square feet. So basically, you're recommending denial of that, okay? So the findings that we made that go along with that, our first finding that needs to be made is to preserve and enhance the San Bernardino's unique neighborhoods. What we cited in that is Land Use Policy 2.1.2, actively enforce development standards, design guidelines, and policies to preserve, enhance the character of San Bernardino's neighborhood. That's one of the policies we have in our general plan. So to substantiate that, the finding is San Bernardino contains a wide range of neighborhoods accommodating an assortment of lifestyles, from the urban downtown multifamily dwellings to student housing to new and older suburban enclaves to hillsides and golf course estates to rural estates. Each neighborhood has or has had its own unique character that is a source of pride for the residents. Neighborhood character is defined by many factors: what the neighborhood looks like, what it feels like, how will it be maintained, etc. But more importantly, it is an image in the minds of those who live and work there and in the perceptions of those who visit. Some neighborhoods in San Bernardino are a source of pride for residents, as reflected by the quality of their homes, the diversity of their residents, the beauty of their streetscapes, and the availability of access to open space and recreational opportunities. Other neighborhoods are in the need of assistance for help to maintain, upgrade, and improve safety and aesthetics. One thing for certain in the vision of San Bernardino is that there is a strong desire to maintain, enhance, and improve the various neighborhoods of the community. That's our policy for the city's residential neighborhoods. Our finding to that: the adoption and implementation of Development Code Amendment 22-03 is not consistent with the city's general plan policy by allowing for the development of accessory dwelling units within single-family residential and multifamily residential zones in a manner that will not prevent negative impacts to the existing residential neighborhoods and the community at large. There is a variety of large lot sizes within the city and varying sizes of existing single-family residences. In some areas of the city, the size of the properties within the residential neighborhoods may not be sufficient in size to accommodate a detached or attached accessory dwelling unit without impacting the aesthetics of the neighborhood because of potential of overbuilding the properties and thus invading the privacy of the neighborhoods. Was that pretty close? Is there anything that you would like to add? The second
I just have a couple of comments, but
of course.
Go ahead. I'll let you finish.
The next and final finding to be made: the proposed amendment would not be detrimental to the public interest, health, safety, convenience, or welfare of the city. The finding that we're looking to make: the adoption and implementation of ordinance number MC 1559, which is the one that the City Council adopted originally, establishes the standards for accessory dwelling units, was necessary and desirable for the development of the community, and is in the interest or furtherance of the public health, safety, convenience, or general welfare. By enhancing the affirmation legislation, it was the state legislation for the ADU ordinances. The state legislature identified accessory dwelling units as an important housing option for renters and homeowners, given the undersupply of housing that exists in the state. Ordinance number MC 1559 brought the city's development code into compliance with these affirmation statutes, increasing the maximum size of a detached and attached accessory dwelling unit will impact the aesthetics of the neighborhood because of the potential for overbuilding the properties and invading the privacy of the neighborhoods. Essentially the same thing. So with that, those are the two recommended findings for the ordinance, or excuse me, for the resolution recommending to the City Council. So I welcome any comments that you want to add to that. Other than that, it would be included as part of, I believe Commissioner Lopez has some questions. But if you were inclined, we don't have to take a separate motion. Just wanted to read it into the record, make sure that you concur with those findings. And at the end of the day, if you are so inclined, the motion to approve the consent calendar would include the minutes and this resolution.
I just want to.
We're
I just want to do a quick correction. You did read 1,000 square feet to 12,000 square feet.
That's
so
correct.
we'll just.
Okay, 1,200.
We'll just correct it to have the verbal of 1,200. That's
I
all.
threw that out there to see if you were paying attention.
About 3 weeks ago, I was walking the second ward, and I was approached by a woman who wanted to know about this house that was being built behind her house. And after talking with her, I figured it was an ADU. So I went, this is on I Street, and there's two houses, not, close to each other, but two houses, and I think the third one is on I Street. And these are small houses. The yard in the front yard is very big, and I walked to the back where the construction is actually taking place. Now, I want to know if these houses were allowed to build at 1,200 feet or 1,000. But there was no one working there on that day. It was a weekend. And I walked to the house, and both women were outraged that there was a house being built on their backyard and wondered if there's anything that we can do. They're not the property owners. They're renters, long-time renters, 9 years, 8 years, long-time renters. And I walked to the side of the house. The people who go to the back of the house are literally walking right by their window to get to their house. And the people who are building the house cordon off by putting a fence and reduce their house. Both of them have children, but reduce their backyard. And this house was almost finished. It wasn't quite finished. Is built up into the property line so that it overlooks the neighbor. It's up to the property line on all sides except for one side. And 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and a large room that I imagine is a living room and dining area combined, and a small, what seemed like a hallway where there was a fixture for the gas and a fixture for the refrigerator. It wasn't a full-scale kitchen. But these women didn't want to have a house built in the back of their house where my kids play. And they were both neighbors, and I walked over to the other one and knocked on the door, asked for permission to see the house in the back. And she says, yeah, we got the letter saying that they were going to build a house. And I called up, and what I think these are, everyone's talking about the out-of-town landlord or some lord or whatever, who own houses on I Street. And they're building the exact same house in the exact same street. We received a letter saying that there would be building. I said, what? And I called and everything, and they told us it would, oh, don't worry, it will be a long time. And next thing you know, boom, they came and they built the house. And most people, when they talk about the ADUs, they all thought a granny flat. These owners were probably, I'm assuming, in it for the profit. For the land that is so small, and there's walkway is really right up to their house to get to the backyard. No place to park their car except on the street, and they just weren't for it. But those houses looked like they were bigger than the 850 and 1,000 and so forth. So I'm asking you, Oliver, are the houses being built within the 1,000 or the 1,200?
If they were issued with a building permit, they would be at the 1,000 square feet.
Okay. Well, even at the 1,000, now, you told us property owners who have the space. And so we're thinking of giant space, build a house and so forth and whatever. And that's not the case. It's anyone who owns a property, as long as it fits. And this house, this new house, was from one end of the apartment to the other end of the apartment, and then just they had fenced in where the other lady's kids are, and both of them had kids.
So you may recall, there's not too many cities in California that are thrilled with the ADU legislation, and so. As mentioned in that prior presentation, when we recommended approval and the council adopted, state law is what establishes, and state law allows up to 1,200 square feet for the ADUs. Okay, but it also had some provisions where the city could they had its its latitude. It's up. We could approve less. 1,000 is the minimum that we could allow. That's where we had the discussions about how close they were to the property lines, how much the oversized development, and in the findings there are neighborhoods where we're finding that a lot where the existing house is like 700-800 square feet in some of these older neighborhoods, and then the ADU is being built at 1,000 square feet. And so there's nothing in the legislation that allows us to stipulate that the ADU has to be smaller than the main dwelling. And so and the situation that you're mentioning about the tenants waking up one Saturday morning to the work crew showing up in the backyard, we're hearing that more and more.
Literally walking on their yard to get to it.
And it's common. And there are a couple of companies that are out there, builders. We've been in contact with one that is projecting that over the course of the next year, they are going to be building about 2,000 ADUs in the city, and so spread out. And so they're really. I won't say that there isn't anything they could do.
If they're at 1,000 feet, then they're at 1,000 feet. But this was a practical example. I don't see it where the neighbor. I have a large property that could accommodate a 1,200 feet another house. I am not interested in an ADU, and most of the houses that are being selected in ADUs are for renters, long-time renters, which we know that renters are housing people, and these are low-income people. So you talk about affordable housing and so forth and so forth. But these are people who have hung on to that rental unit, and they're renting for like 9 years, one woman told me. And I looked to see, and I said, look to see, they walk to the side, and then the fence walled in and so forth and so forth. And there's no place to park the cars. So I think it's a corporation or a slumlord or whomever owns properties of houses, and these people have no say-so, and they just get notified, and the house gets built in the backyard. And all I could see was, forget this thing about accommodating housing needs and so forth. It seems to be, it's for profit. I'm not pleased with it. And when is this thing coming up to the council? Because you said it was a city initiated, that the council.
The council had asked us to explore going from 1,000 to
1,200. Why?
I don't.
And who?
I don't have that answer.
You were there. I know you have the answer. But when does it come before the council?
I believe it'll be scheduled for the council, the second meeting in June.
In June. The second meeting in June. Okay. And I would, if you guys can be there, or at least I would say, make sure that you contact your appointee, your commissioner. So sometimes they don't contact us to why we voted and so forth, a denial. But that is the practicality of the application of this 200 homes. And I even wonder if the infrastructure, the piping for 2 houses on 1 lot, but okay.
As I mentioned earlier,
Chair Guerrero, Oliver, let's stop it here. I'll ask that we redirect our efforts to the item at hand. We're getting into Brown Act violation territory now because this discussion is not on the agenda. What we're here to discuss is how you feel about the findings in this resolution, if you would like any edits. This is what our discussion is limited to for tonight.
Well, Albert, yes, I will take that as advisement. But this was one of those cases where I got to see the house after. Before, we were looking at maps and whatever, that's before. But then afterwards, it just reinforced the idea of what we had said the last time.
I would invite you to contemplate how to focus what you observed and to share with Oliver additional information that you would like to see to put in the findings. and we can incorporate, what you're feeling in that way. But let's direct it to what can we include in this resolution, so when it goes to the council, they have a clear picture in writing of what you're feeling.
I do that.
So with that being said, and she's going to go ahead and have to write out what she is feeling, will we go ahead and continue this item? Or,
If Commissioner Lopez doesn't want time to write down, if she can just verbalize, those things, infrastructure concerns, Oliver has some of it already. Maybe you can go down the line and ask if there are other comments, and Commissioner Lopez, we can come back to you if there is anything other, more specific that you want to include in this resolution.
So if I may, the salient comment in the finding is, will impact the aesthetics of the neighborhood because of potential for overbuilding of the properties and invading the privacy of the neighbors. I don't know how you want to expand on that part of it.
okay. So we'll go ahead and, we'll go down the line.
No,
Commissioner-
no
yes,
additional
thank you.
comments.
No
at this
additional
moment.
comments. Commissioner Flores.
One additional finding, I'd add some language on impacts on parking, since we are a vehicle-dependent community right now. So some language on we don't have high-quality transit, which will impact street parking.
So
Seems sensible enough? I don't know.
well, one of the ADU state requirements, it creates a lot of challenges. As you mentioned, there was no discussion as to the accommodation for infrastructures, as you're saying. It doesn't require that analysis in order for you to build an ADU on your property or in a neighborhood. The other is the parking, and it makes all of us planners cringe, where the way the state law is written and our ordinance complies with. You can convert a garage into an ADU, and you don't have to replace the garage. And so all you have to do is have a parking space. And so if you have a driveway, that complies, right? You build an ADU, you don't need to provide parking for an ADU. So it's, for us, for most of us planners, it's like, it's a tough one. You add basically adding units, and you're reducing the standard. So in some cases you have the ADU, and now you've got the driveway to park in, and that's it. And so, but we could, so the resolution, so it's the item that's before you in the code amendment is a request to increase the size from 1,000 to 1,200 square feet. So that's what we're looking to find. Why the recommendation for denying increasing that extra 200 feet? And if you believe it's more than it seemed like it was the overbuilding, and as you get closer to the property lines and closer to each other, now there's privacy issues.
Well, could you say, do you have to allow for a variance or so many feet from the property line?
There are minimum. Harold, can you help me on that? What the setback requirements are? Harold's our ADU expert over here.
Thank you, Oliver. Yeah, Commissioners. So there are certain parameters depending on what the applicant is proposing as far as what type of ADU. There are conversions to existing structures, including garages. There are requirements for ADUs that are going to be, let's say, less than 800 square feet in area, detached from the home. Then they would only have to comply with that 4-foot setback from the side and the rear.
This
property
was
line.
an actual house. What is it for a house?
For an ADU, it would be 4 feet.
It was an actual house that I saw being built.
That is an ADU.
ADU, so what is the actual?
Without knowing the square footage of the structure that was being built, the code would require 4 feet for an ADU from the side and the rear.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move on with comment. I know you had.
I had questions. I don't know if you can include it, but help me. Right now, it sounds like it's being abused. How does the permit get approved for something larger than 1,000 feet? 3 bedrooms is bigger than 1,000 square feet.
Not necessarily, no. And I'm right here. The standard is 1,000 now, so it's very simple. If it's greater than 1,000, it's illegal. It was not permitted.
But whatever they built would be.
We don't know that that was greater than 1,000.
Is it an inspector that goes out there during construction to make sure that they're following all the guidelines they're supposed to follow?
Harold can speak to that better than I
Sir?
can.
Typically, a applicant would have to submit plans to the city for plan check. At that point, we would look at the square footage as being proposed to make sure that it complies with our current ordinance. So as far as the square footage, based on Commissioner Lopez's information, maybe we can look into that specific property by getting the address for the property, and we can report back to the commission at the next meeting if that's what the commission decides to do so, just as an update as to what they went through as far as their plan check process, what the building permit that was issued for, and what that square footage was for that structure.
Okay, and then my next one is, we're putting all this together. Can we make parking part of the requirement? I'm asking, is that something we can fit into this?
If I may, we can't require additional parking. We're limited. Okay, but what I was going to suggest, as Commissioner Flores was starting to indicate about the parking and transit and those kinds of things, we can. Let's see. How do I thinking out loud here? So if your ADU is 1,000 square feet, you could fit only so much in 1,000 square feet, right? We'll say so many bedrooms, your bath, your living room. You know, there's only so much you could fit in there, right? If you add 200 more square feet, now you're looking at you could add another bedroom, right? And so now you may be going from a 2-bedroom to a 3-bedroom ADU, which you may interpret, well, that creates an extra parking burden. So I was kind of quickly putting together some thoughts here, and I would flesh it out a little bit more. If you're inclined, is increasing the size of the ADU creates an additional burden on off-street parking requirements. Something along those lines. If you give me some time, I can come up with something a little more eloquent to say that. But along those lines, by making the ADU larger, now there may be need, because there's a 3rd bedroom or what have you. Now there may be another vehicle involved. Maybe a 2-bedroom maybe a 2-bedroom or 1-bedroom ADU is only going to have 1 or 2 cars. You add another bedroom. You may add the 3rd, 4th car. Something along those lines.
Okay, and then one more, just for clarification for me. We asked for it to not go beyond 1,000 square feet. That's what's going to be presented, right?
That is correct.
Not beyond 1,000 square feet.
That is correct.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add to that, outside of the fact that we don't have a way to really monitor, regulate these buildings. Yeah, we just don't. We don't have the resources for it. So until such a time when we do have that, I mean, God bless code enforcement, whatever. I mean, I just think we did the right thing in denying that 1,200, that expansion of the 200 feet. So I'm looking for, and if you could present that as well to them, let's get some more ADU specific codes and regulations and then let's put a moratorium on the increase until such a time when we actually, as a city, can monitor these ADUs being built, because as Commissioner Lopez was saying, we're opening Pandora's box here, and we're going to have an explosive situation. We won't be able to keep up with. I mean, I think you just quoted a certain number that we're on track to get built over the next year.
I think you said 200, 2,000.
Yes.
Even more in the city.
There's no way we're going to be able to keep up. We don't even have the manpower to. So, you know, that's my thought on it. And I will be, if you can give me some specific dates of the council meeting that will be addressing this, I'd love to be there to formally let them know what my thought on this is. We encourage ADUs. We need them, but this just opening the door and just letting the floodgates go, I don't think that's the way we want to go with this. We need some specific codes, regulations, and the ability to enforce them for this to move forward.
So if I may, the earliest date that it could go to the city council would be June the 15th. After that, it would be the July meeting, and I can't say with certainty, but I believe there was some discussion of not having the July 6th meeting due to the holiday, the 4th of July holiday. Don't quote me on that, but if it would be on the 6th, if there were a meeting on that date, or it would be on the 20th. In any event, what I could do when that report is completed, I could make sure that you all receive a copy of that staff report via email prior to the city council date, if you'd like.
I would appreciate that.
You are welcome. And while we were speaking, when Commissioner Flores, he indicating the transit, I could also include in the other than the increased square footage creating a burden of off-street parking. My thoughts are maybe we do want to include a discussion about, because there's a limited access to transit. We really don't have a choice. I mean, you take out, we take out someone's garage, or there's extra cars, and even if I wanted to take the bus or the train, it's not readily available to me in some neighborhoods. Some neighborhoods are more or less impacted than others, and if that's something that you would like for me to include in the language of those two findings, I can do that.
2,000 applications for AUDs, and are the majority of these at renters?
They are all going to be renters.
More than half.
They're all going to be renters, and I'm going to.
I mean, the houses that they're being built at, the people who currently live there are all renters.
I believe almost all of them are.
Low-income renters.
Commissioner Morales.
Yeah, I don't have any further comments.
Thank you.
Is there a limit to how many ADUs each property can contain? So if they were to go ahead and convert their garage and they still had room for 1,000 square foot building on their property, they could build that?
Yes. So when you have your ADU within the structure, that's considered they call that a junior ADU, right? So you can have that. So you convert your garage, put a unit in there, and then you do a detached ADU in the back.
So I've got two questions. So can we pass an ordinance or regulation that you can only have one ADU per property? It's just a question. No, we can't do that.
No.
Then my second question is for someone who's abused it, like the property she saw, can we find the owner? Just a question. How do we
For,
take
for
care of
doing,
that?
for doing what?
If
For,
it's been abused, if it's larger than 1,000 square feet, because 3 bedrooms, that's a pretty large, 3 bedrooms and a common area and a kitchen and a bathroom, that's larger than 1,000.
well, if it's larger, it's just like anything else. If you build an addition to your house without permits, you go, it becomes a code enforcement issue where it has to be removed, or,
So we can do that,
yes, we can.
but we don't have the manpower to do it. We can do that?
We can do that.
All right, let's do it. Shoot.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and
So,
move on.
so if we, and that was supposed to be the easy one on the agenda. I'm joking. So if we could, if we could, if we may regroup for a second. So that item was on the consent calendar. And so the consent calendar, if you are inclined, a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar, which would include the minutes for the meeting of April the 12th, and also this resolution that we were just speaking, and with the modifications to the resolution as we discussed, where I would add the modifications to discuss the limited access to transit systems, and that the increased size of an ADU from 1,000 to 1,200 may create the need for an additional off-street parking, which would burden the site and the local streets, something to that effect. And if I get it wrong when you read my staff report, you could yell at me at the following planning commission meeting.
So just for me to clarify, so we are looking to pass this before we see all the changes.
It's up to you. If you would like to, the alternative would be to remove item number 2 on the consent calendar, and then vote on the remaining consent calendar, which would be you would just approve the minutes, and then take
Continue
item
it.
number 2 separately,
And continue it.
and say that you would like to continue it to the meeting of June the 14th, so that you could ratify the resolution, whatever the pleasure of the commission is.
I'm asking for it to be continued. I'd like to see all the language
Okay.
before I
Is,
approve it.
is there a second to pull item number 2 from the consent calendar?
I'll second it.
So, do they need to vote on that? Right up.
Yes.
Okay, call for the vote.
Chair Guerrero?
Yes.
So yes, do you want to pull the item?
Yes, pulling item number 2.
Okay. Commissioner Lopez? Yes. Commissioner Sanchez?
Yes.
Commissioner Flores?
Yeah.
Commissioner Lewis? And then Commissioner Morales?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll pull item 2.
So then the next action would be to a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar, which would be for the minutes.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve this consent calendar of the minutes of the regular meeting of April 12th, 2022.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, and then obviously Chair Guerrero, how do you vote?
Yes.
Vice Chair Armstead? Yes. Commissioner Lopez? Yes. Commissioner Sanchez?
Yes.
Commissioner Flores? Commissioner Lewis?
Yes.
And Commissioner Morales?
Yes.
Okay, the minutes are approved.
Thank you. So then the next item would be entertain a motion on item number 2 to continue that matter to the June 14th meeting, please.
We did that already, Oliver.
Did they take motion for that? Okay.
We did a motion, we seconded, and Jessica called for and recorded the vote, right, Jessica? Yeah. Yeah, so that's done already. We can move on to item 3.
Item number 3, okay. Come on up, Sam. So item number 3 with the brief introduction. Over the course of the past several planning commission meetings,
Do I still need to? Do I still need to read the? Okay.
no, this is a non-public hearing item.
Okay.
So the commission has regularly asked, what are we doing for energy efficiency? Are solar panels required? Do we need to have charging stations and those kinds of things? And my standard reply is they'll catch that in the building department, right? Those kinds of things. Well, this evening, here is the building department, Sam Marinin. And I'd ask Sam if he'd be so kind as to provide the planning commissioners with a presentation as a summary what they look for when a project comes in. Planning commission, approves a project, then it goes over to his department, and he gets the fun part of making it through the plan check process to get a building permit. So he's put together a presentation to explain some of the things that they look for, some of the state requirements as it relates to the green code. Sam, if you would please.
Thank you very much, Oliver. Good evening, everybody. As Oliver said, my name is Samuel Marinan. I work for the Building and Safety Department for the City of San Bernardino. I'm here to go over some of the hot topics, if you will, of the energy code and green code that we see at the building department every day. But Oliver had kind of hinted on it. If you guys had any questions regarding the actual plan check process or submittal process, I'm more than happy to answer those questions as well. So I did put together a slideshow. So the screen's in front of you, and for the public, the screen up here. Energy compliance, residential and non-residential. So to start with energy code compliance for residential properties, there are home energy rating systems for certain mechanical, electrical, plumbing applications that we get. So there are forms that applicants are required to submit stating that they are being energy compliant with the type of mechanical, electrical, plumbing installations that they're doing on their home. So a few examples up here on the screen on the slideshow are HVAC systems, window retrofit, roofing, also with water heaters. The Building and Safety Department requires a CF1R form, which is the California form for energy compliance, to be submitted at time of application. And from that point, I will get into where it goes from there. So again, these are just a few examples of residential installations that require energy compliance. The next slide goes over non-residential. So a couple examples up there are illuminated signs, ductwork for HVAC systems, and windows as well. So again, any type of project, we're requiring that these examples be energy compliant and requiring that the forms be submitted at initial application. Now, from initial application, a couple of examples that I posted here. The one on the left is the CF1R form, which we collect initially. The one on the right is the completed testing of that system. So as an example, for a HVAC system, a licensed professional tester is contracted to go out there to make sure that the installation is up to code, not only California Building Code, but also Energy Code, so that they can make sure that they are being sufficient in their energy and installation. All right. Next is moving on to solar systems and electric vehicle charging stations. Again, both for residential and non-residential. So starting with residential solar, this is the majority of the applications that we see on a daily basis. So roof mount solar systems, we get probably 75% of the applications that I personally see on a daily basis are these applications. We have come up with an expedited checklist system. So again, to the point of Oliver, the actual submittal process to make it easier for residents within the city to obtain solar systems and have them permitted. So our expedited checklist is on the city website. There are certain parameters that the solar system must remain within in order for it to be expedited. If it is not, it does have to go through that plan check process. One that we don't see quite often, but I have seen before, is ground mount solar on residential. It's one example that I got recently was a large property on the northern end of the city where they wanted to do ground mount, like a miniature solar field. That's also something that needs to go through plan check process and make sure that it's energy efficient and meets all the building and energy standards. Next is the residential EV chargers. So with new construction, there is a requirement for homes to be EV charger ready. So it's not a requirement that they must be installed, but that they must have a dedicated conduit for these types of installations. And for residential EV chargers, there are two different levels. The first one being one that you can plug into any outlet within your home. And then the second one, excuse me. The second one requires a dedicated 240-volt electrical circuit. Again, these are the requirements for if you're wanting to install them, but like I mentioned, for new ground-up residential construction, there isn't a requirement for them to be installed, but that they must be ready and have that dedicated conduit. The next slide moves into non-residential solar. So some examples that we see for this, again, are roof mount, ground mount, also larger solar fields, and carports. Personally, I haven't seen any larger solar fields. I have seen one driving through on, I believe it's on 3rd Street, near the school there. But I personally haven't seen any of the applications for that. But again, roof mount and carport solar are a lot of what we see on a daily basis. And yeah, so not to continue and repeat myself, but they all must meet the California Building Code and energy and code compliance. So then moving into non-residential EV charging stations. For commercial, industrial, and EV stations, from my research, for the 2019 building code, a lot of these new constructions for, again, commercial, industrial, or non-residential, if you will, they don't require that these chargers be installed, but that they must be EV ready. So it's not a requirement that they be installed, but again, the dedicated conduit for these types of installations for ground-up construction. And there are some really good resources. Again, what I got a lot of my information from was the 2019 California Green Building Standard Code, and also Energy Code ACE, which is a website that is actually referenced in the California Energy Code book. So if anybody would like to do their own research, hopefully I covered a majority of what you guys were discussing prior, but I'm open to any questions that anybody may have. Again, anything regarding this or part of our plan check process. Thank you.
We'll go ahead and, any comments, questions, commissioners? Oh, so we need to open this to public hearing?
This is not a public hearing item.
No, okay, thank you. Okay. Any? Okay. Oh, no, we're gonna, go ahead.
Could you talk a little bit more how the implementation of the indirect source rule interacts with your department? The indirect source rule being the one where warehouses of a certain size have to meet certain green building requirements.
Yeah, I didn't quite find that in my research, but if you could, what was the actual code that you referenced again?
It's the indirect source rule with the South Coast Air Quality Management District.
Yeah, AQMD. Yeah, I hadn't found any detail regarding that in my research, but what I can do is do that research, and I can get back to you. As far as you mean, what the requirements for new warehouse buildings are when it comes to AQMD and energy compliance?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
And then secondly, have you seen in other cities any requirements with gas stations, including EV charging? And is that something our city's development code can be amended to?
Personally, this is my first experience within a municipality, so
okay.
I'm not too sure of what other cities' development code are for the requirement. You said being in gas stations?
Yes.
So if I may, Commissioners, I believe that the building code is updated regularly, and I believe it's up for next January.
Every 3 years, January 1st, we'll be implementing the 2022 building code.
And so I believe that there's some of those standards are going to be addressed in the building code. I'm not sure what section it would be under, but I believe there has been some discussions about that as it related to warehousing and compliance with AQMD standards. I know AQMD has been pushing for that.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation. I just have one question. When you say that new construction is going to be required to do, they don't have to well, of course, level 1 is just a plug in the wall, whatever.
Right.
Okay. But now on the level 2, when it has to be EV charger ready for level 2 as well.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And with that being said, what exactly does that mean? Does that mean that all they have to do in the service panel is have a breaker, a 30-amp breaker, or must they locate, not only have the breaker, but have that, I think it's a J117.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. To
In
answer
the
your
garage or.
right. Yeah. So
where it's accessible.
they will. It is required that they have a dedicated conduit for that. And to your point regarding the service panel,
Yes.
it has to be identified and called out that it is EV ready.
Meaning that.
That the service panel can withstand
yes,
that.
yeah.
And the requirement also in the building plans is that service panel, whichever dedication they have for it, is called out and stated verbatim that it is EV ready.
So Bob buys a new home in San Bernardino.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, and one of the selling points of that home was, hey, it's EV ready. You can go level 2. And he goes and he says, wow, that's great. And then he goes in the garage, and the totality of the infrastructure is all located in the service panel. What I'm saying is, if he knows that it's completely ready, where all he has to do is buy the unit, have it set in by whatever contractor he chooses, and start charging his vehicle, that's EV ready.
Correct.
But in your language, I didn't hear how to what extent EV, what really is EV ready.
Right. So the verbiage in the code states that there must be a dedicated conduit from the service in the location of the I believe they called it, I'm trying to use their terminology, parking structure, whether it be a carport or their garage, that there must be a dedicated conduit run to that location for the specific use of the charging station.
Okay. Well, thank you. Now I understand.
It's really hard to quote their verbiage.
I'll get clarification.
Thank you.
Commissioner Morales,
No comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
for your presentation.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you,
Chair
Oliver.
Guerrero, you can open for public comment if there's anyone that has any public comments, because this presentation does have to be received and filed. And so before a motion on that, you can ask if there's any public comment from anyone here tonight.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on this item? There being none, we'll go ahead and have a motion to receive and file.
I'll make a motion to receive and file item 2.
3.
Is it 3?
3.
Okay, wait, I gotta see it for myself. It is 3.
She was our
It is 3.
ADU.
Yeah, I'll make such a motion to receive and file item 3.
Okay, do we have to do individual votes? Okay, and then Chair Guerrero,
Yes.
Vice Chair Armstead, and then Commissioner Lopez, Commissioner Sanchez,
Yes.
Commissioner Flores,
Yes.
Commissioner Lewis,
Yes.
and then Commissioner Morales.
Yes.
Okay, it's received and filed.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you for your presentation.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and move on to public hearing items.
There's more presentation.
Oh, one more presentation for this? Okay.
Yeah, so it's still a non-public hearing item. So, Madam Chair, members of the Commissioner, so here we are back again to present the San Bernardino Active Transportation Plan. This plan has come before you twice as a follow-up discussion as to where we are with the progress on this plan. Now here tonight before you, I will have KOA, our staff from KOA who prepared this wonderful plan for the city, give a presentation in greater detail as to the actual, what the plan is all about, and then where we go from here and what the next steps are. So with that, I'm going to present, we have Frank and Jenny are both here from KOA, and they will be able to give the actual presentation.
Good evening, Commissioners. Like Harold said, my name is Frank. This is Jenny. We're from KOA Corporation Consulting Firm. We're going to do a presentation to provide a good overview of what's in the plan, kind of the process of the plan, and like Harold mentioned, what the next steps are. So this plan, it's an active transportation plan, and really starting off with what is active transportation. There's many definitions out there, but active transportation is really the means of getting around by really human power, right? Walking, biking, running, that kind of thing. So a lot of just personal active, what we call active transportation, right? Without any kind of motorized vehicles or things like that. The project goals, I'm not going to read, too much into the details here, but the project really set up these goals to really guide the plan for the city, and really it starts with connectivity. So we want to make sure that what we're presenting and providing in this plan is providing connectivity, locally within neighborhoods, but also regionally to major destinations in the city and connections to the neighboring cities as well. Local access and mobility, same thing, providing access to your transit stops, bike facilities, other facilities that are within the city for walking and trails and things like that. And then really creating and improving safety. We're looking at not only providing the connections that are needed for pedestrians and bicyclists, but also improving the safety of the entire network. And then ultimately health in the environment. So we want to make sure that we're providing alternatives to automobiles, right? We want to make sure that there's other ways of getting around town. This is just a quick overview of really our project schedule. We actually started the project in November of 2020, and we're now May of 2022. This is where we're really wrapping up this plan to finalize it in June, and then we'll cover kind of what the next steps are at this point. As you can see through here, we went through some of the outreach phases, phase 1 and 2, and then the development of the active transportation plan. So the outreach and engagement portion really kind of involved various components, really starting off with the project logo and tagline, which you'll see at the top right. And this was really used so that we can promote the project, the outreach that we're doing, using this color theme and logo in every material that we're presenting, flyers, website, things like that. So everyone gets really familiar of seeing these colors, seeing this logo, and identifying it with the active transportation plan. We've also created a project website, and I believe it's in one of our slides here, where we provided a lot of information and updates on kind of where are we at with the project, things that are coming, things that have been done, documenting some of that. Part of the outreach was to obtain feedback from the community, and so we developed an online mapping tool where participants can actually identify specific locations or corridors and identify any kind of situations, concerns, issues that they have, documenting that on the map so that we can actually download and really process that information. So this was made available online, so it's be easier to access for everyone. We've also conducted project surveys, again, to obtain additional feedback, and that would be through the website and also through some of the outreach events that we've participated in. In total, we had 5 community events where we were basically tabling, showcasing some of the materials that we were preparing, whether it's toolboxes or draft project corridors, things like that, to obtain the feedback that we needed to further develop this plan. In addition, we did virtual focus area sessions. This is what we did virtually to obtain and discuss specific areas within the city, obtain information from the public, from the community on what are some of the concerns or issues in particular locations. So it kind of follows that online mapping tool, but in a more interactive way through these virtual sessions. We also conducted focus group interviews. We had 3 of those, again, where we looked at some of the specific areas within the city, discussed the specific concerns through a different group. We want to make sure we obtain, obviously, information from various stakeholders and all that. So that's where we get into the technical advisory committee, where we did have a lot of members from local agencies, Caltrans, various agencies that provided a lot of background information on specific corridors, specific issues, things that are ongoing or planned in other agency plans. So we want to make sure that what we're identifying in this plan is really continuing throughout. So we want to make sure that neighboring cities developing a specific bike lane in a specific corridor that ends at San Bernardino. We want to make sure we make those connections and not just let it drop off. So we did get a lot of information from the Technical Advisory Committee, or TAC, regarding a lot of that information. And we've also collaborated with them on the reviews of our draft kind of maps that we've developed as far as our networks. Then we had, a neighborhood association committee meeting, and that was really just to, again, obtain more information from, specific communities that would add on to everything else that we've really obtained. Really getting into recommendations. So we really start off with an infrastructure toolbox, and this is just a sample of one of the pages that's in the document. Really identifying a lot of tools that can be utilized for many roadways within the city, specific corridors, to really enhance the safety and provide additional facilities or connections for pedestrians and bicyclists. So this is, it's a big section in there with a lot of information that can be used to really start to identify and kind of piece some of these together to develop a project within the city. We've developed what's called an active transportation network, and this is really a citywide approach to really identify some of the corridors for active transportation improvements. We broke that down into kind of 3 different classifications, with starting off with multimodal corridors. Those would be some of the larger streets, right? You have your corridors that extend from one side of the city to the other, some of the larger streets. Those are the ones that we want to focus, obviously, on multimodal improvements. Those are corridors that you would typically have transit, a lot of vehicle access plus bike lanes and pedestrian sidewalks and things like that. So kind of a whole complete network. Then we have community corridors or connectors, and those would be the ones that would connect those multimodal corridors to the neighborhoods, right? So some of the smaller streets, neighborhood streets that start to, they're not so, extremely lengthy, but they do provide the connections to access kind of the neighborhood. And then we have school routes, and those are essentially the ones that are within the school area. We want to obviously focus on making improvements to, the children and those parents and guardians that walk and bike to school. So these are the 3 classifications under this active transportation network. This is essentially just a small map of what that looks like based on the different classifications. So this identifies, again, the blue is the multimodal corridors. The light blue is the safe route, or the school connectors, and then the orange is the community connectors.
Then we developed a bicycle network. We also have a map for this. This one also obviously identifies those corridors that have the potential for these bike facilities to be implemented. We have your traditional Class 1, which is your completely off the road bike path. Then we have our Class 2, which is an on-street bike lane. That can also be a buffered bike lane, as the picture below shows that. So it has a little bit of a separation or a buffer between the bike lane and the vehicle travel lane. Then we have a Class 3, and that's where the bicyclists will share the road with the vehicles. But we've also got what's called the bike boulevard, which has a little bit more of a traffic calming element, and that's typically seen in more of the neighborhood connectors, a little bit of the slower speeds, less traffic corridors. Then you have your Class 4, which is your on-street separated bike lane. So that's your on-street, but you have a physical separation between the bike lane and the vehicle travel lanes. And then here is the bicycle network that was developed. We do have some larger maps for this, but these are identifying both the existing and the proposed bike facilities for the plan. So this is where we've really gone through the process of coordinating with staff and stakeholders to identify what's ongoing now that makes sense to continue those through San Bernardino. What makes sense as far as making connections to the neighborhoods, to the local destinations, and then provide regional access as well. So this is ultimately what was developed, identifying a lot of these corridors that have that potential to really start implementing a lot of these bike facilities. So part of this, we've created what we call project fact sheets. We've identified here 7 project fact sheets, and these are essentially some of the project corridors that that we've identified that you can provide certain improvements, and you'll see a list on the left there of some of the types of improvements that we've recommended along the corridor to really improve that accessibility and connection to not just the destinations, but also the neighborhoods and the local streets. And so our first one here is Highland Avenue, and you can see this is kind of more of a regional connector, really providing access both all the way east and west boundaries of the city. Another one is Waterman Avenue. So this one, again, is more of your north and south. Again, more of a longer corridor, providing more of a regional connection. Again, some of the similar improvements you'll see on the left, but it definitely includes a lot of improvements and that it really revolved around safety for pedestrians and bicyclists along all corridors. Then we start getting into a little bit more of not necessarily regional, but more like the local corridors. So you can see here when we have a north-south Little Mountain Road and Mount Vernon Avenue. And again, it's really providing some of the elements, basic elements that may be missing through the corridors, such as sidewalks, curb ramps, additional crosswalks, and certain safety improvements as well. Then we have Baseline, more of an east-west connector. Same thing here, identifying some of those gaps in the sidewalk networks, curb ramps, crosswalks, and bike lanes as well. We've also identified some kind of near term, such as a Class 2 near term improvement, and then a Class 4 separated bike lanes for more of the long term. And that's something that can be implemented, obviously, with future changes that are being done as development changes, right-of-way access becomes more available. That's when you can kind of go into that long-term improvements. Then we have Electric Avenue, Mountain Avenue corridor, a little bit more of the north-south again. So this also provides, really good corridor for bicycle access, but as well as pedestrian, and again, improving some of the sidewalk connections and, other elements to provide the safety as well. And then we have Rialto, a little bit more on the south end of the city, east-west corridor, which connects with the Pacific Electric Trail corridor. So here, again, connecting some of the different facilities of bike lanes. You have your off-road trails connecting with the on-road to provide those connections along east-west. Then we have up on the northwest part of the city, we have Little League Drive. This is a really good connector for more of a neighborhood connector, traffic calming, providing a little bit more of those elements like traffic circles or what we call the neighborhood roundabouts, increasing the safety or visibility of the crossings by, including RRFBs or rectangular rapid flashing beacons. And again, missing sidewalks, curb ramps, things like that to really improve the corridor. And again, this is more of a little bit more of a neighborhood improvement for traffic calming as well. And that's essentially a quick summary of what's in the plan. Obviously, there's a lot more information there, but it's really, this plan is developed to really, first of all, as a baseline is identifying kind of existing conditions, right? Some of the, looking at some collisions, what's occurring, where are some of the issues, developing projects that make sense, providing regional connections, local connections. With this plan, it provides really a tool for the city to go after grant funding. So some of the projects that we've identified here, they can be repackaged into ATP grants or other grant funding sources to obtain that the funding to actually design and implement these facilities and really start to kind of implement the entire plan as a whole. And obviously this will go in hand with your general plan mobility element to make sure that it's all consistent and they work together to kind of develop that vision of the city in the long term. That is all I have, and we're open for any questions.
Thank you for that, Frank, and KOA for putting that project together for us. It's been a while, and also to Harold, he was a project manager on that, with working with KOA and SCAG on getting this project before us. As Frank had mentioned, this is kind of a background report, if you will, to our circulation element of our general plan, which will be that we're working on. And so, as discussed a little bit earlier, it alluded to, the need for transit systems and biking and connectivity and those kinds of things are certainly something that's high of importance, alternative modes of transportation. And one of the things, if you look through at your leisure, look through the document and see there's a lot of valuable data in there. And I know this is, it's a lot to take in for right now, but really take a look through it and just, it identifies those areas that are in need of systems of sorts, whether it's safe walking routes and, linking bike trails together. And it really gives us a good summation of where the needs are. And so again, this will be melded into our circulation element, and the goal is, as there's funding availability out there for grants, one of the things that they ask for in the applications, to have identified projects, locations and things. And so we'll be able to turn to a document and say, well, you know what, we have a list of them, as a matter of fact, and we've adopted them by policy in our general plan, and so we can aggressively go over go after those kinds of things. And so I appreciate the effort for this. Our action tonight is no formal adoption. Of sorts, there's no resolution. It's simply a receive and file and forward it to the city council for their consideration. Available for questions if you have any. Thank you.
Good afternoon, evening. One of those. Great project. We're excited about this. This is something that I think will bring a higher quality of life for our residents in San Bernardino. Great project. Just have a few questions now. I'm understanding that you're approaching your final stage of the work that you're working on now, and should be finalized in June. Is that?
That's correct, so that we can move on to the city council.
Okay, and then you do have another phase that begins thereafter, or because
No, well, as part of our project as a consultant, this is really the end of
that's
it.
your-
This is
okay.
our deliverable. It's,
Gotcha.
it's from this point where city staff can take it, obviously with the general plan, or kind of identify projects that they like to pull and go after funding. So this is now their tool to use it in that manner.
I got it, okay. And then, I noticed that you also had a, neighborhood association meeting, one. Was there a specific reason why you only had one? And
Yeah.
where?
We actually did reach out to them for the virtual, the virtual sessions that we had. They were not able to attend, and because the virtual sessions, I believe we had conducted one where we didn't really have anybody join, so then we had a separate one specifically for the neighborhood association group.
I see. Okay. What do, I mean, when you say neighborhood association group, or was that all-inclusive with all of our neighborhood associations, or was it just one specific neighborhood?
It was actually, I believe on a monthly basis, the presidents of all the
Okay.
associations
Okay.
get together
Thank you.
at one location, and so there was that's where the presentation was, and information was provided to the presidents that they could disseminate amongst their group at their respective
Okay,
follow-up
I
meetings.
see how it worked. I just got two more questions, and I'll be done. Your class 4 paths, if you will, there's a lot of that, and it was a lot. But there was a large break in it. I don't know if you could put that map back up there. If you just show that first map way back, right there. What's that large, let me just point to it, right here. What is that break, and what am I missing?
Yeah, I believe that's existing, if I'm looking at that correctly. The other part of that is, I think that's also along the city boundary, so that might be just outside. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so I believe that section is just outside the city boundary.
I see,
Yeah.
which,
So we're looking at bike facilities, everything within the boundary. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Well, that's an excellent segue to my next question. Will you, or was there any talk at any time about possibly, and I know this, we're looking at this specifically for, and to benefit the residents and the communities in the city of San Bernardino, but is there any plan in the works, or have there been any thought of maybe even stopping or connecting to our surrounding communities? What do we have?
If I may, before Frank answers that, I know he has an answer for that. We did have, as part of this exercise, there was a technical advisory committee, which is comprised of some of these other transit-related jurisdictions, SBCTA, and some of these others. Maybe if Frank could help me out, but there was a membership, so we had representative. There was several that were in there, and like to your point, it was to coordinate all of the efforts and how is this cohesive with what some of the neighbors are doing.
Yeah.
Would you mind maybe sharing who was on those groups, Frank, if you would?
Yeah, we did have, SCAG was definitely part of that, since they are, the funding this. We had Caltrans, we did have the surrounding agencies, I believe it was Colton, right? Colton, Fontana,
Yeah.
Highland, yeah.
That's what I was.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was essentially what the TAC was, and we were really coordinating with them to know what projects are they developing in their cities, where do they end? That way we can make sure that we have connections. Obviously, we don't want something that is beautifully built on their side that just suddenly ends at the boundary and there are no
Right.
connections.
Yeah.
So a lot of this stuff is really developed to make sure that those connections are made. And whether that's in a class 3 or a class 4 or class 1, that can be developed as obviously the development, within that area allows. So, but those were considered for sure.
And it also included, what was the name of that biking coalition? There's a,
The Inland,
Inland
the
Empire.
Inland Bike, the Inland Biking Alliance?
Inland Empire Biking Alliance. They were very active as part of the TAC. Actually, as part of one of the 3 focus group interviews, we had a specific meeting just with the adjacent jurisdictions.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that's why we discussed a lot of the possibilities for collaboration too, right? Because this is an opportunity to understand what are we doing in the city, but also what are other cities doing, so that we could develop the relationship to potentially think of future projects.
Sounds excellent. Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. That, just if to add, that also allows for really coordination, San Bernardino with neighboring cities to, also develop a larger project that can be, kind of inner city, connections, and that can actually be developed to go after funding. So that they can work in partnership to make sure that that gets developed as well. So there's definitely a lot of different ways of implementing this, and that's essentially what this is. It's really a tool to figure out how you want to move forward with it.
Yeah,
Okay.
and just last sentence, outside of the tech and outside of the focus group, we actually have specific meetings with Caltrans and also SBCTA specifically to discuss this network. So there were a lot of meetings that were involved to ensure the interjurisdictional coordination.
Wow, sounds like you've done your homework.
We
Thank
want to
you.
give you the best product.
Thank you.
I want to actually say thank you for taking the initiative of contacting the other cities, because there is one point, the corner of our city, which connects. On one side of the street, it's Loma Linda. On the other side, it's Redlands, and it's right off Tippecanoe, and there is actually a bike lane. And if you continue down the street, I don't see actually continue, but it's an older street as you continue up. So seeing that you are trying to connect that and make sure it goes throughout the city.
Yeah, and obviously this is part of a bigger project, right? Like SBCTA has their plans, obviously, so we want to make sure that this is not just like we're looking in a bubble for the city, but it's really making sure that it's connecting to the really, really regional kind of plans that are out there from SBCTA, Caltrans, and so on. So that is really the purpose, to make sure that we have an entire network within the area, Southern California, that just, it doesn't seem like, okay, well, it ends here, where do I go? Like, it's just a continuous, connection.
Thank you again for the plan. I appreciate the goals and strategies. That all makes sense. One question I have, what are some low-hanging fruit that the city can approve theoretically next month that don't have any, don't require necessarily any funding that could be implemented? So for example, I saw one including bike parking facilities for developments, which makes sense for maybe multifamily unit housing. So yeah, I'm curious to pick your brain to see what's some low-hanging fruit that we can get started on.
Now, some of it can be on the policy side, right, to kind of, if it hasn't been done yet, maybe Harold, you can answer this, but for certain developments to require bike parking or other improvements to the adjacent, property area. But this is really looking also at, RRFBs, right? The flashing beacons, signage, striping, that can all be kind of the low-hanging fruit because it's easier to install. It's not as huge funding as major infrastructure. So from these toolboxes and the plan, you can really kind of pick a corridor, identify some improvements that can be done, within a few months, and start making those. And that can, now I'll refer to Oliver and Harold regarding where that funding may come specifically. But if that is available, those are things that can be done now And a lot of this is you have existing crossings, so there are crossings, obviously marked crosswalks at some of the intersections, signalized or unsignalized. There's improvements that you can do there to create high visibility crosswalks. So it's really just repainting, restriping them, things like that. So that's more the low hanging fruit. But the bigger stuff is the real physical infrastructures that take the design and engineering to really implement. And that's the down the road kind of elements for that.
And if we, thank you for that, Frank. And in that regard, when we, in some of our community meetings that we had, that's one of the comments, was a reoccurring comment, safety. And, and one of the sections and surveys that were conducted in the study talked about what are some of the barriers that keep you from walking. And so it was always, the safe conditions. I'd like to walk, but I can only do it when I get after work. It's dark and there aren't street lights, or there's a gap, or the crosswalks and those kinds of things. And so we heard that, and again, as we put together our list, and I'm far enough from Alex so he can't kick me right now, but ultimately after he'll get me outside. But ultimately, we've all heard of, you hear rumors, or there's this CIP, right, capital improvements program out there for these things, and every 5 years the city council prioritizes what should be done and where, and those kinds of things, with varying cost. You can go from street widenings and improvements and those kinds of things, and there are some lesser cost type of items that can be highly impactful. And so the goal with this plan now is that we do have something that we can hopefully use to substantiate some of these things, and then it's up to the decision makers to prioritize that, and then we can approach those.
Yeah, so actually as part of the last chapter of this plan, it's called the implementation strategy, and it discussed several strategies that the city can take to implement this plan. And one of it is actually called project time and cost, and that has your exact answer. It separates the different improvements into short-term low cost, mid-term mid cost, and long-term high cost. And so for the short-term low cost, when we have the ADA programs, the high visibility crosswalks, the pavement markings, the signage, it's like stuff that is like very low-hanging fruit. It's just like putting up a sign, right? But like sometimes all you need is just a sign. Sometimes all you need is just a crosswalk in order to make it brighter for people to actually walk on it, for motorists to see. And so those are the low-hanging fruits that we discussed. And if you have time, I will recommend that you take a look at the implementation strategy. In that chapter, we also listed several funding sources that the city could look for funding for. Actually, as part of this during this project, I believe the city staff actually went for funding for the Clean Cities grant, which does. Do you guys know?
I'm not sure if we did.
No?
Clean Cities grant? Yes. Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah. But it was not included into this one because it was only a one-time funding source. But the funding sources that were listed have been going on for several iterations, and so that's something that the city can consider.
I have a couple of questions. With the bike lanes, just for clarification, does that decrease the number of car lanes? How does that work?
No, so we've identified certain corridors where you do have the kind of that capacity, right, or I should say the right-of-way, where some of the lanes right now are very wide, and sometimes that kind of induces like higher speeds. So in those cases where you do have room to reduce the lane widths, you can actually provide enough space for a bike lane. So it's not taking away necessarily a vehicle travel lane. If you have two lanes in each direction, you can keep those, but you basically narrow them down to add the bike lanes on either side. That's just one case. But it's not necessarily just if we're adding a bike lane, you take a lane out. There's other ways that you can make them fit. It's kind of reconfiguring the street, which can also be more of the traffic calming. So you can actually kind of help reduce some of the speeds to improve the safety, but you're also adding the bike lanes, or you're adding wider sidewalks, or whatever the case may be.
And then the next is, these are going to be included, all these recommendations, I guess, are going to be included in the CIP?
No, now you're really going to get Alex after me. Come on, Commissioner. So this is a menu, if you will. And so what we'll do is, as we mentioned, the next step for this document, after the council, if they are inclined to approve it, would, our general plan consultant will then take this information, and we'll start to flush out and prioritize. Okay, what makes sense of where these items go, and in our general plan, it has goals, which says we want provide bicycle lanes as an example, a biking system within the city, and then the policy will be by creating connectivity in certain neighborhoods. Then the next layer would be program. How do we program that? And that gets into when we start prioritizing which streets should be done, and then from there, when it comes budget time or what have you, then those items could be discussed when there's conversation starts. Well, we have money available for whatever it is. It's street lights, it's curb and gutter. It's accessible curb returns. Those, there's always a list. And so then then the fund begins of prioritizing based on how much funds we have to do those. And so, but there are many grants for this. I mean, that's common. Everyone says, well, there's always grants out there. There's grants out there, but there are. I don't remember the acronym that we're working on with Harold now. The TCC. It's a state agency, and so we're working with them. We have an application that we've been working with them, and so they've asked us to identify a 2 square mile, I believe. Is that the geography? 5 square mile area, and we identified that area in proximity from the downtown area, kind of from the freeway, Seacom Lake, and up both in those directions, and where could we provide, kind of a connectivity, non-vehicle type of transit system or travel system, if you will. And so we're working on it. It's early on. We're in the early phases where they're screening applications. We're in that process, and I believe the goal is that by later in the year, they'll be taking formal applications for that. So they're helping us. There's an advisory group that's helping us bolster our application, and so we've already given a copy of this because again they're looking to fund projects that are ready, and that's what we're looking to show them.
And then, do we get any say-so on prioritization of what streets, what areas, or?
Ultimately, you will. You will get to see the general plan when it comes before you, okay, and the various elements. And so, yes, you will. To answer your question,
we will. Okay. And then my last question, I believe, is there still time for comments, or it's done? We're just waiting for the June.
There's always time for comments. If there's I don't know how much additional technical analysis that we can do, but if there's certainly if there's, I don't know how you might have gone through the document, but if you have a suggestion, if you will,
yeah,
of we think this part of the system is a priority or something along that line. There's some connectivities missing here. We believe it's a higher level of importance. That's something that certainly you can.
We just forward that to you.
Yes.
I don't have any questions. I just want to say thank you for presenting this to us. Clearly, you put in a lot of hard work and community outreach into this. I'm looking forward to, going over it more in depth, the plan that you've given us. And I'm excited to see it come to fruition, hopefully sooner than later, to create, more inviting opportunity for residents to, be more active in the city. But thank you. Your hard work doesn't go unnoticed. So.
Okay. Thank you. Does anyone in the audience have any questions, any comments? No? Okay. So can we have a motion to receive and file?
I motion that we receive and file the report, item 4, active transportation plan.
Second.
Okay.
Okay, Chair Guerrero,
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez,
Yes.
and Commissioner Flores,
Yes.
Commissioner Armstead, Commissioner Lewis,
Yes.
and Commissioner Morales.
Yes.
All right.
So, Commissioners, I just wanted to clarify, you guys made a motion to receive and file the active transportation plan. So it's a two-part motion. The second part of the motion would be to forward the recommendation to the mayor and city council, recommending the approval of the actual San Bernardino active transportation plan.
Anyone opposed to that? All right, Jessica, you can record in the minutes like that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now moving on to public hearing items. The Planning Commission will first hear a report from staff, and then the public hearing will be open. The applicant will have an opportunity to speak. Next, members of the public will be allowed to speak. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak must be sworn in and also fill out a request to speak form. The forms are located at the table near the door. When your name is called, come forward and speak into the microphone. Say and spell your name and give your address for the tape record. After all have spoken, the applicant will be allowed to respond. The public hearing will then be closed and the Planning Commission will begin deliberations and make a decision. All actions except general plan amendments and amendments to the Municipal Development Code are final action unless an appeal is filed and fee paid within 15 days to the Community Development Department. If you challenge the resultant action of the Planning Commission in court, you may be limited to raising only those issues you or someone else raised at the public hearing described in this agenda or in written correspondence delivered to the Community Development Department at or prior to the public hearing. May we have the staff report, please?
Yes, good evening, Commissioners. First to note that we did add some verbiage to the resolution and staff report and agenda that you see in front of you. It was just adding the MMRPs, which is the Mitigation Monitoring and Reporting Program for the Mitigated Negative Declaration, which is the environmental document that analyzes the project. So just making note of that. All right, item number 5 tonight is Conditional Use Permit 21-16. The applicant, Clean Energy, is requesting the approval to allow for the development, establishment, and operation of a renewable natural gas, RNG, and compressed natural gas, CNG, fueling facility for sustainable energy trucks, also known as green trucks. And it's located on a parcel containing 6.36 acres, located at APN 0280-091-27 within the industrial light zone. Here we have a rendering of the completed project when it is completed. We have the canopy area here, equipment enclosure, and of course all applicable landscaping. Here we have the location map. It's located off of South Tippecanoe and East Central Avenue within the industrial light zone. The main entrance will be about 555 linear feet from South Tippecanoe Avenue. Here we have the aerial map showing the project location. To the north is the San Bernardino Airport, and this way is a Stater Brothers warehousing. All right, so our analysis today is the city is a participant in the San Bernardino County Regional Greenhouse Gas Reduction Plan and goals that are set by the state of California to reduce greenhouse gas emissions below 40% of its current levels by the year 2030. Without sustainable fueling facilities such as the proposal, green trucks cannot enter into the marketplace to replace diesel fuel and help meet some of the state and city standards. So operations, the facility is for commercial fleets to operate green trucks ranging in size from medium duty to semi trucks that are reliant on the RNG and CNG fuel.
The gas is provided to the site by an underground natural gas pipeline and is piped from the utility pipeline to a new gas meter and piped to the equipment compound and compression equipment where it is filtered, compressed, and ready for fuel. The facility consists of 4 fast fuel on-demand compressed natural gas fueling pumps for on-demand fueling. There are also included 128 renewable natural gas time fill fueling ports that fuel semi-trucks over a 6 to 12-hour period while the truck is parked at a designated space within the secured gated parking lot. The entire facility is private and will only be available to authorized fleet customers. The unmanned facility operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and functions as a card lock system activated by card readers only. The facility is always monitored by security cameras and a service representative call center located in Newport Beach. Clean energy technicians will dispatch to the site on a bi-weekly basis for maintenance and on-demand services as required, and there's 43 active techs that are on call within this area for any type of emergency or repair situation. Access, parking, and design. Direct access for the project site will be from East Central Avenue via 2 new commercial drive approaches. There will be a 3rd driveway approach which is provided along the west side of South Tippecanoe for emergency access. The parking facilities will include 128 time-fill parking spaces for fueling the green trucks and 128 passenger vehicles parking spaces for safe and secure parking of the driver's vehicles while they are operating the green trucks. And it also meets the general plan and mayor and common council goals. Here we have the existing site looking north towards the 215. Here we have the existing site looking south to East Central. Here we have the existing site looking east to North Tippecanoe. We already got a little mural going on over here at the service station they're building. Here we have the existing site looking west to South Waterman. All right, and here's our site plan. So here we have the K-rails. This is where the slow trickle time fueling is going to take place, the 6 to 12 hours fueling. Trucks enter here into the new approach, and they can go through this gated area here, park their passenger vehicles in these areas, and then hook up to their slots here so they could fuel for the 6 to 12 hour period. This area right here is the fueling canopy for the compressed natural gas. So a truck can come in, turn around, and fuel up within X amount of minutes and be on their merry way for the rest of the route. Here we have the elevations and the fueling and enclosure. The design for the fueling facility consists of pre-engineered metal canopy with colored fascia that will be illuminated with branding and operational classified lighting, which is a Pantone mixture of high-gloss lacquer enamel. All additional fueling equipment, bollards, compressors, and transformers will all match aesthetically. Here we have the circulation plan that kind of reiterates what I had just talked about on the site plan. Here we have the landscaping plan, which consists of Desert Museum, Palo Verde, Bubba Desert Willow, and Chinese flame trees. There will be a total of about 111 trees. Ground cover at approximately 61,000 square feet, which is set in deep coral colors. The setback on the street frontage of South Tippecanoe over here will be set 20 feet back from the property line and will be heavily landscaped to screen the project site from the public right-of-way but not interfere with the public line of sight. There will be a total of 36 trees, which we planted along the frontage and entrance to the facility off East Central. The remainder of the setback and parking areas will feature trailing Latinas, fairy dusters, red yuccas, and various drought-tolerant shrubs and ground cover that will exceed the necessary landscape of 15%. It'll be around 35% of what they're giving us. There will also be a 6-foot decorative high wrought iron fence which will surround the perimeter of the property and integrate it into the design of the project to the west, which would be a C-store, service station, car wash that was approved via conditional use permit 18-05. Here we have a little map of the existing operations, which Clean Energy now runs. In the green dots, they're operational and online. The blue represent under construction, and the yellow would be in development phase, such as ours currently. And here we have a little example the time fill dispensers, you could see how the trucks hook up to the time fill dispensers where they're fueled anywhere from the 6 to 12-hour time period. And also the fast fill dispensers, which mimics the service station, however, it's compressed natural gas and not traditional fuel. So our recommendation tonight is that Planning Commission adopt Resolution 2022-022, adopting the Mitigated Negative Declaration and Mitigation Monitoring and Reporting Program in accordance with Section 15074 of the California Environmental Quality Act, and approving Conditional Use Permit 21-16 based on the findings of fact and subject to the recommended conditions of approval. That concludes my presentation. I'm open for questions. I'm hoping the applicant's here. And they're willing to answer questions as well.
Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and open the public hearing for item number 5. And we have Michael Lawson, who would like to speak.
Here, Commissioners. I own the property.
Go ahead. Right here.
Never done this before, so bear with me. I just found out about this on Saturday. All righty. I found out about this on Saturday. The project is north of my facility on Tippecanoe. It also, the project and their pictures didn't show that it's also at the end of the runway at the old Norton Air Force Base. Are you familiar with that? I did a little research real quick. I didn't have time for anything else. Excuse me here. Here, could you pass this, give this to the commissioners? This is just incidents reports that I picked up here recently. Here's some more to give to each one. Only knew there was, I thought there was 5. No one would tell me how many there was here. The site might be a good proposal somewhere else, but not at the end of a runway. It's a ticking time bomb. And if you read those reports, natural gas, if it has a natural gas leak, naturally goes up in the air. Kind of like your, how about your barbecue? You light it, turn the gas on, it doesn't light, and all of a sudden it goes boom. Okay? That's what natural gas does. It rises. As a jet airplane goes over, it goes into surge. That jet airplane, the engine blows up. A little bit of common sense here. We don't need natural gas at the end of a runway. The site, if you look at it here, they've kind of blocked out the area, but the runway is 900 feet from that natural gas. It's also in a residential area, and they're going to run 24/7s. You see that? Now, before you pass this, or if you do, you need to drive out to the site and sit there around 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, when most of these trucks will be there, and see how many jets come in there. It's not a place to put up a natural gas fueling site. What do you say? It's going to have about 240 trucks in there. 12-hour, what'd you say, 12 hours to refuel?
There'll be 128 trucks and 6 to 12 hours to fill.
But you also said there's going to be 120 trucks be parked there at all time.
The 128 spaces for the passenger vehicles, which the drivers are parking their cars, would be the under 128.
Okay, that doesn't make a lick of sense.
So you're going to have 128 for passenger vehicles and 128 for your time filling vehicles.
Can I have my pants? Oh, right here. All right. So at fueling at one time, how many can you have? How many trucks can you fuel at one time?
We're not going to
If
go.
I may, it's not a question and answer period. You have 3 minutes to make your comments.
Okay, well, just, my comments are, that's a natural gas fueling site with 120 trucks, say 120 trucks, truck drivers. Did they hook up the natural gas line correctly? Did they? No. They're truck drivers. They drive away with that natural gas line, it blows up. Where does the natural gas go? Straight up. Where does the jet go? Straight down. Once that natural gas gets into the turbine of that jet airline, it's going down. And that's a bomb waiting to happen. If you look at any of those sites there that I brought up, and that's just in Newberry Springs.
Thank you, Mr. Lawson.
That's it? All right. Thank you.
Just to answer the question, all the gas will be enclosed and undergrounded. There was also an environmental document that was produced for the project that analyzed all such deficiencies, if any.
Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? The applicant, sir?
Yes. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Greg Roche. I'm with Clean Energy, and it's a pleasure to be here tonight. Thank you for your time. And with me also are Tom Dotson and Dan Close, that are our technical consultants on the project, and also the property owner is here as well. So we look forward to answering any questions that you may have. And before I go into comments, I do want to also say I want to recognize your helpful staff. This is a very detailed, meticulous process to go through to get to this point, and your staff has been truly wonderful and a pleasure to work with. So thank you to the staff as well. At the end of the day, this project is really about the environment and sustainability. We've got a problem with air pollution in Southern California. We've suffered through it for too long. And now we also have a problem with climate change, where our carbon emissions are much too high. This project gives an opportunity to make a change starting today. What we have to do, according to the South Coast Air Quality Management District, is we have to get the diesel trucks off the road and replaced with clean trucks. And in fact, I heard the question earlier about the warehouse indirect source rule. This is the exact technology endorsed by South Coast AQMD to replace the diesel trucks so that the warehouses in the Inland Empire can run clean. So we can do that today by using these trucks. They eliminate all of the diesel particulate pollution that we're exposed to. They also have such low greenhouse gas emissions that they can be negative greenhouse gases, carbon below zero. It's the lowest carbon technology available in the marketplace. We want the trucks. They deliver the goods. We need the goods. We just need to do it with clean technology that's available. And the other comment I want to make is, this is our 25th anniversary. In over 25 years, we've built up over 560 locations across the U.S. Over 40 of them are here in Southern California. You've heard we've got 43 technicians that cover this area. We have 24/7 operations center. And for us, it's all about safety. Designing and building these stations is under rigorous building department standards and fire department standards. To get here to you tonight, we had to meet with the airport and execute documents and record the documents that certify that we're in compliance with all of the safety regulations of the airport and their overlay district that includes this property. We have stations all over the country at airports. That's one of our largest markets in addition to transit operators, LAX and John Wayne and Dallas, Fort Worth, and on and on. So I would welcome anybody. I'd welcome the gentleman who commented. Come and visit our sites. We'll be happy to give you a tour. We'll show you our 24/7 operations center. As it turns out, this is actually a safer fuel than the fuels that we're all accustomed. We're all accustomed to fueling up with gasoline and diesel. And we assume we're familiar with them, so they're safe. This is actually safer than those fuels. If there is such an incident as described by the gentleman, the station automatically turns off the supply of gas, shuts it off. So there can't be an uncontrolled leak. A driver pulls away from the pump, as they do with gasoline stations, and drives away with the nozzle still intact, automatically shuts off that dispenser. So there's not an uncontrolled gas leak. This is using the same infrastructure that already exists. The gas that heats this building already exists. So all we're doing is taking advantage of that existing infrastructure, using it to transport this amazing renewable clean fuel so that trucks can be moved, our trucks can move the goods for us cleanly and efficiently. And by the way, the trucks are 90% quieter than a diesel truck. So you get low emissions, negative climate emissions, and clean, quiet trucks. So big win for the community, and happy to answer any questions. I've got some brochures here about us, happy to provide so that you can take a look at those. And we look forward to answering questions. Thank you.
We'll go ahead and start on my right.
Commissioner Lopez. Do you have any comments?
What is the mitigated negative declaration and the mitigation monitoring and reporting program under the California Environmental Quality Act? What is that?
So the mitigated negative declaration is an analysis of all the impacts that may be created. So it's air quality, noise, traffic, biology, cultural resources, hazardous materials. So there's a long list, and so it analyzes each one. As each analysis is made, it comes to conclusions, whether to levels of significance, and if it's something that's not if it's above a level of significance, then there's a mitigation measure, or to reduce the level of impact, there's mitigation measures. So it'll as an example, your project generates a certain level of traffic, let's say. That certain amount of vehicle traffic requires you to put in a signal or a stop sign or whatever the case is. And so that's what that document does, and it addresses each of the, so the mitigation monitoring program is the document. The measures are essentially like the conditions of approval for the CEQA document.
And who monitors it, or who?
Staff does.
Who does?
Staff does.
Our staff.
Our staff does, yes.
You will be doing that?
Correct.
On a weekly basis? Monthly basis?
Well, what happened?
On a quarterly basis?
If I may.
Or one time only?
It depends. And so, so this is essentially what the table looks like. And so it'll provide the analysis, like this one says air quality, and it identifies an impact, and then it tells you what you need to do. And this particular one, it says at the time prior to issuance of a building permit, you should have these items in place. And so when they submit their building permit application, this is attached to their drawings. And so when we're checking the drawings through the plan check process, we'll make sure that it tells you when the measure has to be implemented. We see that, we sign it, we check that off, and make sure that those conditions are met.
So it's done once?
Well, it depends on the item.
Okay.
Some of them are done at issuance of building permit. Some of them are a monitoring where it's after the fact, at the time of a certificate of occupancy when the project's completed. Some of them are like air quality remediation, if you will, or conditions. Those are monitored by AQMD. As an example, you have a gas station typically, and so AQMD will do their regular inspections, if you will, to make sure that their equipment is operated the manner in which it does. You're welcome.
Commissioner Sanchez? Yes, so I wanted to first thank, I'm sorry I didn't quite catch your name when you came up, for bringing this material to our attention, because these are actually, worrying things, having pipelines next to airports. I currently am studying environmental engineering, so I know about kind of what the regulations at CEQA and certain other organizations are doing to mitigate these things. So I want to just thank you for actually bringing it to our attention, because it is actually important to know that, errors do happen. If I could ask the applicant, if you could just explain in detail kind of what mitigations are being made. And I know that you said that everything is rigorously, being checked. Some of this stuff is reported from 2017, which is not too long ago. Can you mention updates that have been made? Maybe mention a bit more about the other projects that you've done. That way we could probably answer this and see if maybe we can come to understanding.
Sure. I mean, sight unseen, I don't know what it was handed out. But this project is not about building pipelines. The pipeline already exists. Just as other projects that come in here and seek approval, they utilize natural gas in their warehouse or distribution center, whatever it is. The pipeline already exists. They're just tapping into it as we would be doing the same thing. What we're doing is we're taking that gas off the pipeline, running it through compressors that increase the pressure of the fuel so it can be dispensed into the vehicle. And this is all done with, as I said, under the jurisdiction of the building codes and the National Fire Protection Association that regulates every aspect of how to design, build, and operate these stations.
Are further, stipulations made because these pipelines are obviously already existent to repair, to make sure that, nothing leaks or goes through that when you're connecting?
So with our station operation, we actually have sensors that monitor and detect if there are leaks. And they'll automatically shut the station down if there are leaks.
Perfect. Honestly, I like the idea of having cleaner energy here in the city. Is there anything for electric as well, possibly going in? Because I know there are semis that are coming in to play already that are doing that. Would this be viable to also have a section that maybe in future could go in that direction?
Oh, absolutely. In the future, it's what we look forward to is a diesel-free future. Mm-hmm. And as other technologies come to market, whether that's electric or hydrogen, and we build hydrogen stations as well. So whatever those technologies come to bear that are going to be deployed by customers, we're in the business of clean transportation. You're welcome.
First question is there a particular reason why the airport did not acquire that parcel?
Are you asking me?
No, I'm asking the Flint Church.
Did not
acquire this property. It just seems awkwardly empty right next to the runway.
Well,
I guess you can answer.
Well, I believe, the owners here, it's my understanding that it's probably been under their ownership for a couple of years, a while.
Yeah.
I'm exaggerating.
Got it. My next question for the applicant, are any of your other facilities this close to an airport?
We have facilities all over the U.S. that are located near airports. So, yes.
If I may, Tom, if you wouldn't mind, if I may introduce Tom Dodson. He was the CEQA consultant that worked on this document on behalf of the applicant. I will also point out that Tom does all of the CEQA documents for the airport. And so he could maybe shed a little light on. Thank you, Tom.
Good evening, and Madam Chair and members of the Commission. I'm Tom Dodson, as was just mentioned, and I did do the environmental document. Let me, I think, answer your question right off. This property wasn't purchased because it wasn't needed by the airport. All right, and so they have substantial area, about 900 feet, I think the gentleman mentioned, but the runway is quite a bit in from this location. It doesn't change the fact that it's still in an area that's identified in your general plan as being of concern for airport compatibility. When I recognized, working for the airport as well, I recognized early on that this was going to be an issue from a design standpoint. And I contacted the airport and ultimately put them in contact with Clean Energy. The intent of doing that was to have them talk about the facility and make sure that the airport felt that it could be installed. They've reviewed the document that you've got in front of you. They participated in the direct communication with the applicant to be able to resolve any concerns. And therefore, this is deemed compatible by the airport at this stage. Now, what happens in this process is that the project had to undergo some design revisions to be able to be compatible with the airport. So from that standpoint, we've addressed those airport issues sufficiently that the airport feels comfortable with this project. Now, we'll come back to, I wanted to hit on one other thing that has been discussed a little bit, and that is in this process, this project doesn't just get reviewed and analyzed by the city and the city staff. It also gets reviewed very carefully by the county's Hazardous Materials Division. This is County Fire. And what they will have to do is they will have to come in with their plans, be reviewed, and then they will be monitored on a continuous basis by the Hazardous Materials Division for the County Fire Department, which is also the city's fire department now. So there's already a structure, if I can use that term, that is used to be able to manage these facilities to the best extent that they can be managed. You've got the applicant indicating that if there's somehow a break in the line or a leak in the line, the system just shuts down automatically until you can come back in and resolve those issues. So I'm here to answer any other questions. Ma'am, you were talking about monitoring. When they build the facility, all of the construction monitoring activities are on a continuous basis with the building staff here at the city. They are required to look and check off, are all the air pollution control measures being implemented? So this is a very long-term process. Mitigation monitoring began in 1994. And it's grown, and almost every jurisdiction has the clear ability to go out and implement monitoring on an ongoing basis for each of the measures that we've identified. So, bottom line, this is a project that's been through a complex review at this stage, and there are measures that have been implemented, design changes, as I indicated, to be able to ensure that it would be a safe operating facility. I can answer any other questions on the environmental if you'd like me to.
I guess my next question, I didn't hear much about circulation. What main streets do you anticipate will be impacted, given how many trucks will be coming in and out of here?
Well, let me do two things. We have the actual traffic engineer here who can probably answer these questions better. But very simply, the major traffic flow will go down Tippecanoe and Central. And they're going to aim for freeway ramps and whatever else. The traffic analysis looked at both vehicle miles traveled, VMT, and the effect on the circulation system. And I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that there were no major improvements that were required at any intersections in the surrounding area. Because the trips that you're seeing, stop and think about it. There's going to be 128 coming in the morning, 128 trucks leaving. In the evening, 128 trucks come back. And that can happen all day long, by the way, in terms of coming back. And then the driver collects his car and drives home. So you're talking about just about 400 trips per day, which is not a lot.
Thank you.
And like I said, there's more detail if you want to talk with the traffic engineer.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Good evening.
Hold on,
we go
Commissioner
back
Lewis.
to the-
Hold on, Commissioner Lewis.
Oh, yeah.
Gentlemen, if you do want to have some questions, I just ask that you step outside. Thank you. Go ahead, Commissioner Lewis.
Yeah, can we go back to the aerial picture, that one? That Central Avenue there, is not that a residential community across the street? And have we included, is this just being shoved down their throats, or?
May I
did they-
respond?
Yeah, please do.
If I can. If you look at that photo, that aerial photo, it's an old photo. You can see the olive trees that were at this location for a long time. There's only 1 or 2 residences left. Everything else has been converted to industrial in the surrounding area.
If I may, that zone, those properties there are zoned industrial.
Yeah, they are.
Yes.
Yeah. And there's very few homes along Central all the way now. They've even removed the school that was on Central. It's been removed and relocated.
So the only, well, under our current requirements, I guess the only notification you guys had to do was to what? Stater, is that Stater Brothers there? The warehouse?
It was
No, sir. No, sir.
500 feet in each direction.
Yeah, so.
But that is not Stater Brothers.
What is that?
Those are, if you remember, if you look at the area, you'll see a little truck parking area on the, which is right in there.
This is truck
And then just south of that is a series of office complexes, including the Forest Service office and so on Tippy. Stater Brothers is maybe half mile to the north.
Half mile.
Yes, sir, approximately.
That's good. Beyond 500 feet, though. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Wow. I guess that kind of answers my question.
Bless you.
That's you.
And the ingress and egress is on the no, it's on the central side.
Correct.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Right there. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
My only, I don't even know if it's a question at this point. My concern would be safety, number one, as I think all of ours is. So before, I guess, you would break ground on this site, I think you mentioned earlier something about the piping and things that were looked into prior to you presenting this. Can you maybe expand a little bit on that? I mean, I would assume that before, building this, that all of those, safety regulations have been kind of met already, so that there's no injury to, the local buildings or what have you.
Absolutely. The next phase after this is we'll go take plans to the building department for plan check and permitting. So they'll verify compliance with the local rules as well as the national standards.
If I may, it will also be routed to county fire for not just their land use division, but also their hazardous materials and handling division. Air Quality Management District will also be reviewing their application because of the emissions regulations that govern this site, and all those need to be satisfied prior to the issuance of a building permit.
Okay. So in actuality, I mean, it could take some time before it actually,
Yes.
Correct.
starts. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Because all those things would have to be met and made sure that it's completely safe.
And if I may, as a follow-up, there's also inspections that go along with those permits. So each of those various agencies will also go out, as we indicated, county fire will go out and inspect, do their inspections, air quality management will do the same. And then earlier was asked about the monitoring of this. As with all businesses, county fire does their annual inspections to make sure that, systems and safety measures are in place. And AQMD also monitors on an annual basis, fueling stations or anything that, involves air emissions. They have their regular inspections as well.
Okay.
Annual
Got it.
inspections, I should say.
Okay. Thank you.
And if there's interest, I'll extend the invitation. If anybody wants to do a tour, would be happy to do a tour so you can see what a station looks like up close. You know, Ontario Airport has a station. It's not too far away. So happy to do that.
Is that the nearest one? Probably.
With respect to an airport, yes.
Okay.
A couple of things. First, I thought we have to notify people 1,000 feet. We didn't?
It was just adopted last Wednesday. It goes
This
into.
was before.
So that comes into play for any items after last week, yes.
Okay, that was one. Yeah, that was my one question.
So what, your next agenda in June, next planning commission agenda, those items would have been noticed 1,000 feet. And from then on.
From there on. Okay, that was one question. Second one is a comment. This is basically a fairly new technology, a very large project, a lot to digest, and I know I haven't had time to really research. It's a lot. And I kind of like to do my due diligence. I like his idea of a tour, because I'm visual. I like the idea of a tour. Can we continue this? I'm asking, can we continue this, give us time to do more research and take that tour so that we can feel, okay, this is a doable. I'm asking.
That is within your prerogative, if you'd like to continue, just like any items, if you want to continue the matter.
I just want to be sure for both of you. I'm just uncomfortable because it's so large and so new. That's where I am.
And what I would offer on top of that is, this might be a new project right here on this piece of property, but this industry's been in existence, well, before we came into existence 25 years ago. So it's the same
Not that new.
nuts and bolts, so to speak, just updated to 2022 versus the way things were 25 years ago. So, and it's been safely used all across the U.S. for municipal fleets, transit fleets, refuse collection, and now heavy-duty trucks.
Yeah. I'd like to know, with 128 trucks going in and out every day, are we going to be doing some sort of street improvement here? Because it's going to beat the streets up pretty badly, I would say. I'm familiar with that specific intersection there, and I mean, neither one of them are super wide streets. That's a lot of truck traffic. What do you say to that?
So if I may, the conditions of approval do require the street improvements along their frontages. So it would be adjacent to their property. So along Central, not that far, Mike, just in front of their portion to their property. So they do the curb, gutter, sidewalk, and they do the street to the center line. Likewise on Tippecanoe from there, and that stretch from there to there. Now, you may recall that other corner that says, previously approved station, that project will put the curb, gutter, and sidewalk, improvements along their frontage, and also do the street to the center line as well. At the end of the day, it will be done from just to the left all the way down to Tippecanoe with both projects combined.
I'm sorry. Let me clarify. In both directions of the street.
No, you could only we're only allowed to do to the center line.
So vehicles entering from pick one, north, south directions. If they've got to make a right to go in there, fine, that's right in front of their frontage. But if they're going to be making a left going in there, that means they're coming from the other side of the street, yes? The side beyond the center.
So as it was mentioned earlier, most of all this property is all developed. So we have the AMPM here that did all the street improvements here, and then there's other properties that did improve some street frontage here.
Okay. Fairly new now. Okay, thank you.
Is there a center turning lane? I haven't been down there in a long time.
No, there's not.
So it's just two lanes, no center lane for them to make a turn and not.
That's
block
correct.
traffic.
You know what? There currently is not, but there will be. There will be the project that's on the corner. You may recall it was a service station, a drive-through car wash, and in there. And so what they're doing is they're actually, as in our previous presentation, they talked about restriping the lanes to make them, you know, they're wider, and so there's a room to make them a little bit more, to gain some area. So they're, at the end of the day, we're going to end up with 2 lanes going towards the east, going from up Central towards Tippecanoe. There'll be 2 lanes, through lanes. There's going to be that one left-hand turn lane on Tippecanoe, so you can make that left-hand turn. Coming back in the other direction, there's going to be 2 lanes coming this direction. There's also going to be a signal, I believe, right where why are you shaking so much, Mike? Right in there.
Tired, hungry, thirsty, all of the above. We're at?
The driveway for that center there is going to be right around in there. And so there's going to be some control signalization there for those cars that are coming out of the station to get them across. They will not be able to turn left. If you're coming out of that service station, you would not be able to turn left to go towards Tippecanoe.
So you're gonna block?
They're putting a median in there, yes. Not this project, but that project that's on the corner of the service station.
Which is in construction now.
All those improvements will be under that project, not this one.
I see. Thank you.
If I may, I'm sorry, you had a question regarding the site visit, if you will. So I checked with Albert here from the legalities. You know, we have our Brown Act items. We have a choice. We could either, if we want to agree on a meeting date, and like we did with the BNSF project where we met on a Saturday, and whoever, that would have to be a noticed meeting.
Okay.
If you recall, we posted an agenda that we were going to meet there. The alternative, there has to be less than a quorum. You could do, a couple of meetings, 2 of you go one day, another 2 or 3 go the next day, but you cannot be a quorum, on your own without posting an agenda. So however you would like to handle it, that's a topic for discussion if you were inclined to want to do something like that.
I would like a site visit.
If I may, so there may be 2, when you say site visit, it may be 2 opportunities. One, the actual site here, to visit the property to kind of get a feel for what the surrounding area is for this project, right? Or if you would like to visit the other facility in Ontario. Those are two different tours.
Could we do them the same day?
You could. Yeah, you could. Take me away from my cartoons, but I guess you could do it. And we would like to, then if inclined, prior to the next meeting on June 14th. Maybe if you want to take a poll or ask your.
I've already made my suggestions. So.
For the dates, if so, which?
Well, we only have 3 Saturdays left.
Let's not jump the gun. Let's make sure there's
Consensus.
a majority that wants to do a site visit before we talk about dates.
Can we do a show of hands? Who is interested in doing a
site visit here at the actual site and or the facility in Ontario? Okay.
Or
both?
Or vote tonight, yeah.
Okay. All right, so show of hands, who would like to see the actual site here in San Bernardino? 2, 3? Okay. Is that something we can do on our own, though? Being that it's here?
Of course.
Okay.
But you can vote tonight, people can still go and visit. I mean, you could vote tonight and everyone could go and visit and we can make it a notice meeting. But it's just however you want to do it.
Okay.
Continue, vote later on this project, or vote tonight and you still can do the tour.
Okay. And then show of hands, who would like to see the facility in Ontario? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so.
Okay, so 5 of you want to see the facility in Ontario. Now, those same 5, just those same 5, do you want to postpone the vote tonight and see the facility first? Raise your hand. 3. Okay, that's not a majority. So you can ask for a motion to vote on this now, and then after that's done, then we can talk about a date for visiting the Ontario facility.
Can we take another vote on that? You're saying the first one, to postpone the vote for tonight until we have the visit? Or for the next time?
I was asking the 5 who wanted to do that visit, who would want to postpone the vote and see the facility first. There's only 3. That's not enough to. 4. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, yes. No, I am. I am.
7. So
I am.
yeah, everybody who wants to postpone the vote and see the site first, the Ontario site first, raise your hand. Okay. 5. No? Okay, so that's 4. That's a majority. So let's put it in a motion. We'll vote on it. We'll record it in the minutes. The motion would be to continue this item to the June meeting, and then after that, then we'll talk about setting a date and time for visiting the Ontario facility. What?
I will entertain a motion to.
The motion is to continue this item.
Continue the item.
To continue
and
the
set a
item
date for
1
the
month.
site.
To continue to vote on this project a month from now. And then then we'll talk about setting a date and time between now and next month's meeting to do the visit. Does that make sense? Any other questions? Okay, so someone can proceed and make the motion.
I'll make a motion to continue this item and then arrange a date where we could have a site visit at the Ontario facility.
I'll second the motion.
You can do it. You can do it.
Okay, Chair Guerrero, Vice Chair Armstead, Commissioner Lopez,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez,
Yes.
Commissioner Flores,
Yes.
Commissioner Lewis, and Commissioner Morales.
Yes.
Okay, so it's continued.
Okay, now you can talk about date and time.
I'd like to ask the applicant, is there a date that you would have available to have us come?
Is the limitation weekends, or what's the?
It's up to them. It could be any day of the week. There's no legal restriction. It's just whenever everyone is available.
If you were inclined to do it on a Saturday like we did at the last meeting, the available dates would be the 14th, which is this Saturday, the 21st, 28th, and the 4th, please.
28th is a holiday.
Yeah.
What about the 4th? Does that work for everybody? That's how we did it for BNSF, and it was very fresh in everyone's mind right before the meeting. So I would push that one if everyone is available.
To the what's that?
June 4th, Saturday. Would that work for you, sir?
Sure.
Saturday,
Yes.
June 4th? Does that work for most folks here?
Majority will be here.
It's my sister's birthday, but I think I'll live.
I do work weekends sometimes, and I'll let you guys know, but I can do my best to be open.
Okay. Now, what about a time? In the morning?
At your convenience.
We did it in the morning last time. What was it? 10 a.m., Oliver? 9? Okay. You want to do the same, like 9 a.m.?
9 a.m.
On the 4th? Okay. So we'll do a noticed meeting. Oliver, can you please prepare an agenda? And we'll need the address from the applicant for where to exactly go, and then we'll meet there. Thank you.
Sounds good. Fair enough. So it is a big project.
Yes, and all members of the public are invited. It's a noticed meeting. Anyone can go to that as well. All members of the public are invited to attend.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and close the public hearing on this item.
So I don't recall if we asked for any public comment. Did we do that?
We did, that's when Mr. Lawson came.
Okay, yes, then I'm sorry. It's been
okay,
a while
I
since
know.
that point. So we're good. Yeah, we can move on.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and close the public hearing on item number 5. And thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And we will move on to Planning Commission reports and announcements.
If I may, as an update, as was kind of alluded to earlier, the city council at the last meeting did approve the ordinance for the 1,000-foot distance requirement for public hearing notices, and so that becomes into effect for future meetings of the Planning Commission, and that's all I have to report this evening. Thank you.
Okay. This was a long one. All right, so can we get a motion to adjourn?
I have a quick question.
Oh.
I know the BNSF expansion was continued by City Council. Do you know when that'll be coming back?
Yes, that item is at the next meeting, the 18th, May 18th, yes. I don't have an update other than that's when the public hearing is going to be conducted.
So now can I get a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
At 8:39 p.m.
Yeah, you have my vote.
And then we can just call for
All in favor?
a voice vote.
Yes.
All approved?
All in favor, stand.
All right, good night.